Hello. We're going to talk about what you should already know coming into this course on JavaScript. Our textbook is going to be JavaScript, the Visual Quick Start Guide. We have a supplementary text that's available free on Blackboard through the library tab called JavaScript and jQuery, the missing manual. And what we want to do is start out by thinking like the folks in Battlestar Galactica did. If you're familiar with their mythology, one of their sayings was, all this has happened before, and all this will happen again. And very similar to what we're going to be talking about is stuff you should already probably know, but different teachers approach these topics in different ways, so a quick review is a good idea. The layers of the web. Everything starts with good content. You have to have content in whatever language, because without content, you might as well not have a web page. But on top of the content, you structure that content with HTML markup. HTML is the structure. CSS layers on top of that with presentation, and JavaScript adds behaviors and interactivity to this. A little bit more word on these is that HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language and is used to structure your web page. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets and is used to control the presentation of your HTML, how your content looks. And it's a good idea to separate your presentation from your content so that you can change the presentation and not affect your content. And the same thing with behaviors. JavaScript is a scripting language and it teams up with HTML and CSS to create behaviors and interactivity for web page elements. So, if that makes a little bit of sense, let's keep on going here. As an example of what this means, you can think about architecture, how to build a house, and you sit back and say, I want a house. You're going to have to start somewhere, somehow, with a goal. I want a 3-bedroom house with a coastal feel and maybe a large porch. That would be very, very nice. But at some point, you have to have a plan. And after that, you have to think about the visual style, how things look. And usually, at some point, you have to build it. And building it is kind of like the HTML and the structure and the foundation. You start with that layer and add on things such as what color is the house, what kind of siding, what kind of roofing, all the things that give it look and feel and presentation. And finally, with any house, there's behaviors. Do the windows open and close? Is there a fireplace? How do things work? And that's generally what JavaScript is to a website. It's the behaviors, the interactivity of, in this instance, a house or a web page. And finally, you end up, in architecture at least, with a house with a nice new SUV out in front, like you do. And similar to this, you have a web page that has HTML foundation, CSS for look and feel, for presentation, and JavaScript for behaviors and interactivity. These things kind of layer and work together, and making them all work together smoothly is the key to this. One thing you should understand is document flow from HTML. Document flow, all it means is tags are basically a series of rectangular boxes stacked one on top of each other or one inside the other, and they're stacked just as the code is written, top to bottom, left to right. Document flow, in essence, means your tags are displayed on a page, top to bottom, left to right. Sounds simple, but as you start taking things out of normal flow with floats and stuff, things can get rather complicated rather fast. So understand the basics, top to bottom, left to right, you'll be good to go. The box model is this. Every block level tag, and I'll go into that in just a little bit more detail in a moment, but every tag for right now has content at its very core. We know this. Has also width and height, and you add padding around the content. You add a border, if you want, around the padding, and you finally surround it all with a margin. The width and the height of an element come from the content only. If you add any padding, any border, any margin to an element, it's in addition to the declared width and height. So if you have a paragraph, you've given a width and height of 100 pixels by 100 pixels, and you add a 1 pixel border onto it, you would all of a sudden have a box that is 102 pixels by 102 pixels. There's a border on top and bottom, a border on left and right, and it all adds up to 102. Just remember, the margin does not display the element's background color, so it's kind of an invisible, safe area that you can declare around any element. So that's the box model. The content models on how all this stuff works, for at least for HTML4, deals with two models. One is this block. There are block level elements or block level tags, and block level tags basically have two properties. I'll get to those in a second. And inline ones are basically left to right, just like sentences. Blocks stack on top of each other. So block level element define a complete section or block of text. They exist in their own virtual little box and are always followed by a line break, just like hitting the enter key after typing in some text. They also can contain either block level elements or inline elements. So a block level element always has space after it, and it also takes up 100% of the width of its container. So inline elements, basically like railroad cars, line up one after the other, left to right. They become part of the flow of text when they are inserted, and they don't have any line breaks after them. They just kind of line up like rows of railroad cars. They usually occur within the content of a block level element. So, next up is a little visual on this. Block level elements versus inline elements. And you can kind of see a picture here of all the block level elements are taking up 100% of the width of their container, the web page, and they have space after them. The inline elements just line up one after the other, left to right, just like railroad cars. So, there you go. Block level elements can contain other block level elements and inline elements and text, but inline elements can only contain other inline elements and text. So there's a hierarchy here. This content model gives you some examples. Block level elements are paragraphs and headings and tables and unordered lists and ordered lists and divs, the mighty div, which I hope you are familiar with. The inline examples are the anchor tag, the image tag, inputs. A lot of the form elements like input are inline tags. And there you go. HTML5 adds some other content models to this, but we're not going to worry about them. For our purposes, we don't need to know.